Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chris, and this is Barn on 11970. And I thought I would do another video based on this comment that a subscriber wrote. And I think this is important to consider, especially if you're new. And by the comments and the emails that I get almost on a daily basis, is a lot of new people climbing on board, which is always a good thing. But a lot of times when you're new, you don't have the experience, and you may not notice certain things. Now, quick shout out to Michael T, who wrote this comment. I want to read this and then give my response. He writes, "Excellent video, thank you." Says, "I appreciate your perspective and advice." And he says, "I was always scared off from silver, thinking that it was mainly an industrial metal and would tank if the economy did. Do you have an opinion on that? Is silver now being seen more as money?" And we'll stop it from there. And while I am giving my response, I'll leave the live chart that's going on. And right now, silver is still over 20 at $20.26. Gold is up at $7.65 to roughly about 13.67. Now, is silver an industrial metal? Well, absolutely. But we have to remember that at one time, silver was used in money. If you have a quarter, a dime, a half dollar, that was from, well, half dollars would be from 1970 or 71. They were 40% silver. But basically, from 1964 down, they were 90% silver in your coins. So they were used as money. And before that, they used gold. Now, you have to think about this. A quarter that had silver in it looks the same as a quarter that now has a cheaper metal. And this is what governments do. They make the quote unquote money look the same, but they back it up with less and less material. So if you think about it, they start out with gold. So if you look at just in the history of most countries, they start out with gold coins. But let's just use the United States of America Corporation, because that's where I live. They had gold coins where you could use the gold and redeem it in your banks for whatever amount of gold you wanted, or you could use it as your purchasing power. Then they changed the gold to silver. So instead of gold coins, people were walking around with silver coins. After 1964, for the most part, because like I said, half dollars until about 1970, 71 were 40% silver, but pretty much after 1965, quarters, dimes did not have any silver in them. They replaced it with copper and zinc. Nowadays, the quarter will be mostly zinc or other materials like nickel. Think about, like, for example, your penny. Your penny used to have copper in it. Now it's mostly zinc. So why do they do that? Well, you notice that as it's going down, the metals are not only cheaper, but they're easier to obtain. So a quarter from 1932 is going to look exactly like a coin that just was minted yesterday. But it doesn't have the same value because a quarter from 1932 would have 90% silver in it, while today's quarter does not. So the way they trick people by stealing your wealth is by making your money, quote unquote, look the same. Now, if you have a gold bar, well, if you have 1 ounce of gold in one pile and a 10-ounce gold bar in the other, which one is going to have more value? So you have an ounce bar on the left, a 10-ounce bar on the right. Well, the one on the right is going to have more value because there's more metal to it. Now, if I have a $1 bill to my left and a $100 bill to my right, what's the difference between the two other than the numbers they write on the piece of paper? It's the same amount of paper. They're both backed by nothing. The only difference of the value is because they wrote a number on that piece of paper. But with the gold, to get more quote unquote money or worth out of your bar, you have to have more of the metal. That makes sense, doesn't it? So originally, notes were backed by gold certificates. Then they were silver certificates. Look in your pocket. You probably have one. Like if you had like a dollar bill from like 1952, it'll say silver certificate. It won't say Federal Reserve note. It'll say silver certificate, where you could redeem that certificate for whatever value of worth of silver they had at the time. Now that same dollar is just a Federal Reserve note backed by nothing. So they originally had certificates that were backed by gold. So the banks had to have a certain amount of gold to make a certain amount of paper, which gave you a bit of financial stability, fiscal responsibility. Then, when they realized that either gold is too expensive or gold is too hard to get, they changed it into a silver certificate, where now that same bill can be manufactured by using a cheaper metal. And then, after 1971, they took off all of the metals, all around the world. So they trick you because they look the same. Except for a couple of words here and there, a $10 bill from the 1920s is going to look fairly similar to a $10 bill today. I mean, they weren't thicker. They just had a couple of different extra words here and there. But they generally look the same. Same with a dollar bill, because the dollar bill has been the least changed since its creation. But at one time, they were silver certificates. And now they're Federal Reserve notes. They're debt notes. So they steal your wealth right in front of you. And we get so used to these coins that we don't stop and think about the metal that once was in them. And this is what was ultimately the downfall of the Roman Empire, because they were the first government to guarantee 80% silver in their coins. Well, as it got harder and harder to get those coins, because remember, when they were dominating Europe and taking one country after another and spreading their civilization, it takes money for soldiers to get their equipment, to get their food, to get their shelter. And they have to spread it out. Now, if you're basing your money based on silver, what happens when you can't find any more silver and you can't, sack another country and steal their wealth? When you start running out, what did they do? They started putting cheaper metals into that guaranteed, quote unquote, 80% silver, lowering its value. So this is where people, especially if you're new, you have to understand that the quarter you have in your pocket or on your desk or in your car, in its glove compartment or your cup holder, is not worth the same, even though it has the same number. And that's why they say that 1 ounce of gold in the 1930s had the value of buying a very expensive suit, because back in the 1930s, gold was approximately around $35 an ounce, and it stayed that way for decades. That's not the case anymore. But if you notice, 1 ounce of gold will buy you a very fancy suit. So it's keeping up with inflation. So they trick you by having the dollar look pretty much the same. Your bills, your notes, wherever you are, your notes are going to pretty much look the same. Yeah, it might have a different president, or the color might be a little different, or they kind of modernize it a little bit, but it's basically the same sheet of paper with cotton and everything. But my point is, they're not using the very expensive metals. And eventually, what are they going to do? Go down to quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies that are made of plastic and then made of wood? We might laugh about that, but as it gets cheaper and cheaper, it doesn't have the same value anymore, but they trick you by making it look that way. So you grab into your pants and pull out some change. It's going to look pretty much the same as if you did that in the 1920s, 1950s, 1970s. But depending on when you grew up and what coin you have, you're going to have different metals in it. The further back you go, the more valuable and the more rare the metal was, giving it its value, because it takes manpower, it takes energy to find the metals and extract them from the earth and break apart all of the other minerals and do all the processes it takes to turn it into a coin. That takes man hours, it takes energy. And because it's not a finite source, it keeps you responsible. Because, they've tried everything with money. At one point, shells were money. But, you could go to your local beach if you live along the coasts and just scoop up an endless supply of shells. So what would give them the value? So that's what they're doing with this, what they call money nowadays, is it looks pretty much the same as it did back when they had value. And we take it for granted. And they take advantage of us because we just get used to stuff. Like they say, tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. Well, the quote unquote money you have in your wallet or your bank account or your pocketbook or under your mattress, wherever, does not have the same value as it once did. Originally, the paper currencies were just certificates that you were supposed to go to your bank and take out your gold or silver and then make your purchases. But people started finding it convenient to have a piece of paper than a bag of coins. So it was a matter of convenience. And as long as the banks were having a lot of people taking their quote-unquote money out, they could print as many certificates as they wanted. That's why back in the days they were called gold certificates, silver certificates. Just like having a gift certificate to a salon. That piece of paper doesn't have any value to it, but you can redeem it for a service. Just like with a silver certificate or a gold certificate, you could exchange that piece of paper in the bank for that amount of gold or silver. You cannot do that anymore. So the average person out there, I mean, most of the people at this point that subscribe to my channel, I'm sure probably 90% of you already get this. But we need to educate the people that don't understand this stuff and keep listening to the news and not really getting the scam. I mean, our own country borrows from a Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the United States. It's a bank owned by shareholders who loan us so the country and the government could make plenty of wealth off of us. And we have to work to pay back the quote-unquote money that we borrow plus interest. And because they only make the principal amount and never the amount that covers the interest, you will continually have to borrow. And since they took the quote-unquote money off of gold and silver standards, and even starting to get away from copper at this point to going to even cheaper metals, they can print at will. So when you see rising prices, it's not that the price is rising, it's the value of the currency throughout the world is going down. And you see every country is always trying to devalue their currency. So it makes one stronger than the other if one devalues their currency a little bit more. So there's always that trade war, because when you lower a currency, you get better trade opportunities because more other countries will buy from you more if they can get it for cheaper. So all countries are always constantly printing more quote-unquote money to devalue their currency, but we all do it. And they all do it against the dollar, so it makes the dollar look strong. It's not that the dollar is strong, it's all the other countries are printing money to make it seem, their country currency seem weaker. Why do you think the United States doesn't really manufacture much to sell around the world? So these are the things that people need to comprehend when it comes to how governments, corporations, banks steal your money. I mean, I'm not sure if this ever happened, but isn't it in Canada? If you live in Canada, please let me know. Don't they have like a plastic form of money at this point? Because I heard something about that. I don't know if it ever happened, and I don't live in Canada, so I would love to know if anybody's that lives in Canada could mention that in the comment section. But just imagine that if you have dollars that are made of plastic. And that's why they want digital currency so much, because then they don't even have to have a printing press at all. They don't even have to get any cotton to make the paper. They don't have to worry about spending any money on ink. They just put numbers in a computer, which you have to, when you borrow it, you have to work for physically to create more of those digital numbers to give back plus interest when they give you nothing. It should be pretty basic at this point, but you'll never learn this in school. You'll never have a politician talk about this. Even Donald Trump and all the other people, Barry Sanders or whoever, Ron Paul, anybody, they don't talk about this stuff. Even the person I talked about, Nigel Farage. When you work in government, you pretty much know what's going on. And you could be 90% good if the 10% evil dictates who you are. You know, like I've said before, if you have 99 pounds of ice cream and mix in 1 pound of crap, what do you have? You have 100 pounds of crap. So as good as some of these people are, they might be better, you know, the lesser of two evils. It's still evil. They don't mention these things. Your schools Even in college, you can go to economics. They're not going to tell you about this. They're going to tell you these green pieces of paper or whatever currency you have is real money. They won't tell you how it's not backed by anything and how we went from gold coins to silver coins to copper coins to zinc coins to soon digital. And for some reason, people don't get it. And I hope they will. But you have to spread this stuff. You don't have to, but if you want to improve this world and get out of the scam, we have to educate the masses. The masses are too afraid. They're too distracted. They're getting a bunch of free stuff, so they'll look the other way, but it ends up hurting us all when that happens. Because we are not getting anywhere in the world where we're all wealthier. Can you name one country on this planet where the people are all doing financially well? No poor people at all. Would somebody please explain to me what country that is? I'll move there tomorrow. Problem is, there isn't one. But you see, every government in every one of these nations that have mostly struggling people, every single politician's pretty well off. And for some reason, we allow them to continue to feed off of us, the fruit of our labor, so they can give us fake currency. And we'll kill other people and hurt other people for that fake currency. So I would rather have physical gold and silver. I would rather have physical, tangible assets. When I was a kid, I used to think it was amazing that I could go to a store and give somebody a colored piece of paper, and they can give me things like food or toys or a bicycle or anything. So I thought it was the most amazing thing as a kid. It's like, wait a minute, I'm hungry. Food is going to keep me alive. I can give this person a piece of paper with some ink and some writing on it, and they'll give me something that keeps me alive. I can go to this other store and give these people this colored paper, and they can give me clothes to keep me warm. It's amazing. So it does have value because the government say they do. But make no mistake, while we're making thousands, they're making trillions. While we're losing our homes, they're buying our homes. While we're starving, they're feasting. And yet every election, no matter where we go throughout the world, people applaud their next slave masters. Because they might look good, they might dress good, they might speak well. They might know all the fancy big words that makes you feel inferior because, after all, don't they call us the commoners, the little people, the regular Joe? How dare they? The arrogance that they are better than us? Aren't we supposed to be all the same? They talk about hatred and everything, but yet it's almost a battle between the haves and the have-nots. And yet the have-nots seem to be very complacent. They don't want to rock the boat. Makes no sense to me. So I hope people will share this. I hope people will watch this because, like I said, I'm just a regular person, just an average, everyday person, but I am a human being just like anybody. And if I have the capacity of learning this stuff, anybody can. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It just takes a brain, at least one eyeball, and at least one finger to click around the internet and start searching things out, or going to your local library and reading some books. Research the history of money. Look and see how every country has started out with physical gold and silver. When it got harder and harder to obtain, they used lesser and cheaper metals that were easier to get, until one day it became so cheap it lost its value and the system collapsed in on itself. If you think this time and age, because we're so technologically advanced, it's going to save us, you're going to find out the hard way. And like I've said before, it just takes one variable to change everything and people will panic. It's very easy at this point. I mean, that's why, sometimes I don't like listening to some of these people like Mike Maloney's and them. I'll listen to them, but I don't believe every single thing they say because ultimately they're selling the very thing they're promoting. And when some people promote about how, physical gold and silver is hard to get, that's fear stuff. Because they're selling you the stuff, they want you to get emotionally involved. They want you to live in the fear and the lower vibration and think, oh my God, I got to get it now. You can go on numerous websites right now and buy physical gold and silver. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's a rare metal that you can't get, because you can get it. But that's because so few people want it. If that changes, where all of a sudden everybody wants it, that opportunity will be gone. It's all about supply and demand. Right now, even if we've been doing this for years, we're a small, not even a 1% of 1% of the population. And look how much we can influence the price of gold and silver when we put our efforts into it. Now just imagine if 10% of the population all of a sudden wanted what us 1% are getting. You don't think the price will rise? You don't think it'll be harder to get the items that we need? The idea is to live in reality, listen to people, and if it sounds like fear porn, because you notice when I talk, it's all about positive. It's all about trying to get people into reality. Now, not all reality is, roses and sunshine and, little crickets playing violins in the background telling you, it's a wonderful world or whatever. But I'm not all about, oh my God, you got to get gold and silver now, otherwise you're going to die tomorrow if you don't. If you don't get it today, you're never going to get it. Those people have to stop. And they'll get the most views because fear sells. Just like war, just like famine, bad news, it sells. We have to be smarter than that. We have to be better than that. If you like countries stealing your wealth and you want to keep applauding your next charismatic, slave owner, by all means, please do. The day this ends is the day we all decide it's time to start acting. Start spreading this information, not giving up, stop being afraid. You're never going to be 100% right, but you're also never going to be 100% wrong. And there are going to be some people that are going to try and tell you you're both, or either, or neither. You are what you are. Just do the best that you can, but see what the truth is and stop ignoring it and stop being afraid that family might not talk to you anymore or friends might not talk to you anymore. If they're going to be mad at you, if your friends are going to be mad at you because you're trying to help them, are they really your friends? Those are the type of people you want? And never doubt that when you post something, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or some social media, don't just assume that no one's paying attention. Because a lot of times people are paying attention, they just don't say anything. So you may never know. And it only takes one person, the right person, to want to start making a movement to the point where they can help change the world. I didn't get woken up just by waking up one day and all of a sudden I knew all this stuff. Somebody had to start me on this path. I had to take it from there. Spread this information. Teach people about what money has become, because it's not money anymore. It's currency. It's not backed by anything. Explain how. Show them a 1-ounce bar and a 10-ounce bar and ask them which one has more value. Well, the 10-ounce bar. Why? Because it has 9 ounces more of silver or gold. So that makes sense. But if you have a $1 bill and a $10 bill, they're the same size, the same weight. The only difference is there's an extra zero. Why does that have more value? People don't question. They don't ask the reason why. We got to stop being afraid to do that. So this is my second video for the day. I'm not going to make it that much longer. If you want to subscribe, please do. If you want to leave a comment, I always love to hear them. Even if I don't respond right away, hit the like button, please. The share button, please. Help support this channel to get this information out. Because remember, I don't ask you for anything. I do this because it's the right thing to do. But I cannot do it without your help. And I'm not asking you to go outside and, knock on people's doors. I'm not asking you to make millions of flyers to put this stuff out. All I'm asking you to do is hit a thumb up button and a share button. Or maybe copy and paste or whatever. That's not a lot to ask for my information that I give out freely. So please do that. Please help get the channel to grow. Because if you've been here a while, you know I do my best to try and help people. Now, I'm not going to get everything right, and I am not perfect. But my intention is to help people. And if you appreciate that, please help bring others here to help that continue. Because maybe they'll make a video. Maybe they'll awaken another person, and who knows what that person can do. United we stand, and divided we fall. The people at the top are all united. But remember, there's no honor among thieves. That's why they're offing each other all the time. So they're only united to a certain extent until it serves their purpose. And they live in fear. Why? Because they're afraid to lose what they have. And they're doing everything to keep us intoxicated, distracted, bought off, and scared. It's your choice to be any of those things. I choose to be enlightened. I choose to ignore the fear and trust my instinct. What you do is up to you. But if you see if I can do it, you can absolutely do it, and I hope you will. So thanks for watching my second video. If you haven't seen the other, please do. If you haven't seen my other videos, go check them out. And don't forget, it's all of us or none of us. Let's do our part. Peace out, everybody.